morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. We welcome you and thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar on building your leaders to thrive in a post-COVID world. Let's take a look at the webinar outline. To say that COVID crisis has disrupted how we live and work will be an understatement. COVID has hyper-disrupted work. Disruptions create both threats and opportunities. Are you playing offense or defense? Crisis also creates opportunities, but it takes preparation. Is your leadership ready? Are you supporting your leaders, or is it a sink or swim approach? As CEOs, COOs, CLOs, and CHROs, you have already handled the crisis quite well. You quickly adapted and stabilized things. You've done a great job so far. Now, how do you leverage leadership to thrive in a post-COVID world? The statistics on effectiveness of leadership development initiatives is both shocking and depressing. How do you maximize the return on investment on leadership development? So before I introduce the speaker, let me take you through the freebies for this webinar. Everyone who has just registered will get the complimentary guides sent to your email. In case you haven't, just enter your full name, company, and email, and we will do the needful. You will also have the chance to win two of our quadruple accountability New Age Leadership Comprehensive Coaching, the starter package. And just a friendly reminder, please remove all distractions so you can focus. You've already invested the time, so make the most of it. Let me introduce today's presenter, Tushar Vakil. Tushar Vakil is a chief consultant at New Age Leadership. He is also an executive, leadership, and team coach. Experienced in India, USA, Middle East, and Africa. Over 2 decades, he's coached over 300 leaders and trained over 100,000 participants. Tushar has served as head L&D for large companies with employee counts from 2,000 to over 6,000. He's part of an elite group of coaches certified by world number 1 leadership thinker and coach, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. People Hum recognized Tushar as the top 100 global thought leaders to follow in 2021. That list includes Marshall Goldsmith, Dave Ulrich, and other influencers, including Tushar. So without further ado, let's get into today's session. Tushar, are you ready?
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for taking the time to join today. It is an interactive event, so you can participate via poll questions and obviously responding to questions and commenting via chat. There will be a dedicated question and answer session at the end. So here is our first opportunity to interact and warm up our fingers for the live chat. And the question is, has COVID changed how organizations work? That's the first part of the question. So you can answer. And I see the answers already. So it's a unanimous agreement that COVID has changed how organizations work. But the next and most important question is, what have you observed? What changes has your organization undergone due to COVID? So type your answers in the chat box. Okay, work from home, yeah, remote teams, more stress, yeah, life is disrupted, true. And yes, many other similar answers are there. So here is another question. What are the top leadership challenges or priorities? As we mentioned earlier, CEOs and their teams had to move quickly to adapt, to stabilize, and to survive. So we've done all that, and congratulations. Now, going forward, if we wanted to thrive, what are the top CEO challenges for maybe CEOs, CLOs, CHROs, C-suite leaders, and you can type your answers in the comment box. Okay, work from home is a challenge. Yeah, work-life balance, true. Teamwork, very true. And I guess new learning, yes, correct, right. So while you're typing your answers, I'm going to talk about the predictive index survey of 160 CEOs. So this was done in late 2020. We were right in the middle of the COVID crisis. And this was about their top priorities, concerns, and challenges. And we will share the link in case you are interested, but I'll share some highlights from this report. So first area was executive strategy and the work to be done. So pandemic has forced companies to change their game plan, change their strategy. In fact, 96% of the CEOs said that they had shifted strategic direction in some way or another due to COVID. And CEOs also said that their number one priority was strategy development. Why? Because it's the new normal. So after the COVID, they want to focus on strategy development and they want to laser focus on it. Next, CEOs think that employees are less clear on strategy. Why? Two reasons. First is the disruptions due to the pandemic, change in strategy, a different strategy. And secondly, difficulty in communicating the strategy down the line due to remote work. Next, less than 80% of the CEOs believe that their employees had the ability to communicate and cascade strategy down to others. So most of them did not have faith in their leadership team to cascade strategy down the line. So what is the key takeaway? As organizations look to bounce from the pandemic, maybe stronger, many CEOs still have ambitious goals, and that's good. However, achieving them requires a strong business strategy and execution. So have you experienced similar issues at your organization? Have you seen similar things? So you can type your answers in the chat box. So while you're typing some of the answers, I'm going to go to the next slide, and that's the next area. So that is team stress and the need for cohesion. Senior executives are leading all new teams. Why? Well, 69% of the companies said that they had restructured their teams during the pandemic. Some people were laid off, some people were reassigned, and so on and so forth. So next is remote work is here to stay. So once it was considered an employee perk, but 97% of the CEOs say that remote work will continue in some form or another. And what is the number one challenge here in this area for the CEOs? It is helping their remote teams work well. They are concerned about productivity of their remote teams. In fact, CEOs doubted that their remote teams could hit the strategic goals that they had designed. And senior leaders are also struggling with team cohesion. Remote working has made team cohesion, what do you think, better or worse? Yeah, that's correct. Most of you typed yes. So team conflict stems from people problems, and CEOs are spending their precious time mediating people issues, interpersonal conflicts. So conclusion from this area, remote work and team restructuring has caused team stress, people issues, and conflicts. CEOs are concerned about the productivity of the remote teams and their ability to achieve strategic goals. So in your organization or in other organizations, have you seen these kinds of issues? You can type your answers in the chat box. And so here is the third and final area from the CEO survey, building dream teams with talent optimization. So focusing on strategy is one thing, but they cannot neglect talent or people strategy. See, businesses don't run themselves, people do. And people are companies' most expensive and most powerful assets. So most CEOs and executive teams recognize the need for talent utilization and talent optimization. But 90% of the CEOs said that they needed outside help for leadership development and to optimize talent. 91%. So CEOs also said that they themselves need help with their leadership development. Why? So they can inspire performance from the team and get the strategy executed. So they need external help. So what is the conclusion of this area? C-suite executives want external help to inspire and build dream teams. Why? So the teams can execute and they can focus on strategy. And you're welcome to share your thoughts if you have experienced something similar in your organization at any point of time. Yeah. So three main areas that were focus of the CEOs. So here's a question now. How was the world pre-COVID? So this survey was in late 2020, deep into the COVID crisis. But how were things before COVID? So I'm going to try and answer that for you. So this is a recent study by McKinsey, and this is the number 61. So what McKinsey found was that the average lifespan of a S&P 500 company was 61 years in 1960. And can you guess how much is it now? Can you guess, would it be longer or shorter? The company's lifespan in S&P and average S&P companies, Standard & Poor companies' lifespan, would it be more or would it be less? And I think you guessed it correct. It's much less. It's now 18 years. So even successful companies who are in S&P 500 have trouble sustaining success. They are either merged or they don't have enough business or they close down. And here is another number. McKinsey says that by 2027, 75% of the current S&P 500 companies won't be in S&P 500. Only 25% will survive. So these are successful companies. And the news for small and medium enterprises is not good either. In fact, only 25% of them, small and medium enterprises, see their 10th birthday. Others are out of business by then. So the challenge for all organizations, even before COVID, was to number one, survive, number two, thrive, and number three, sustain. And here's the kind of world we lived in before COVID. So have you heard of this term, VUCA? How many of you have heard of this term, VUCA? It was described to, it was used to describe the military situation in Afghanistan and Iraq. And now it's a very popular business term. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That is the kind of business environment we operate in. Fast change, global competition, change is getting faster, flatter organizations, new technologies, continuous change and disruptions. And then on top of it, the pandemic. So the funny thing about this is COVID only hyper accelerated change. The VUCA world that we were living in has been there for at least last 10 years. But what COVID did was squeezed what was likely to happen in 5 or 10 years into just a short span. Case in point, if in a normal times, if we had to have a project where we allow people to work from home, it would take at least a few years. But I bet you your company and almost 90% of the companies adopted work from home in a few months, maybe even earlier. So COVID just hyper accelerated what the world that was already a VUCA world. And here's a quote from Warren Buffett. And it says, only when the tide goes out, you discover who's been swimming naked. And the other one is rising tide lifts all. So the VUCA world has been a reality for at least a decade. So companies have been holding on, some of the companies, to their old strategy, old style of leadership, old paradigms of 20th century, maybe command and control. But now they are exposed. But unfortunately, old habits die hard. Status quo, it's very resilient. So it resists any attempt to change. So COVID was a serious wake-up call for a lot of organizations and their leadership who were stuck in the past paradigms. And now it's a case of either change or perish. So change or die. So that's the kind of world we were in before. So here is an opportunity to answer a poll. So what you see is a Chinese symbol for crisis, and it consists of two characters. And those two characters are, number one, danger, and at the same time, opportunity. So my question to you is, and you can type quickly in chat, is COVID a crisis or an opportunity? So I'm going to ask a question where you can only type yes. Is COVID a crisis? Can you type yes if you think COVID is a crisis? Opportunity. Crisis. No. Yes. Opportunity. Yes. Okay. Okay. Both. Of course. Okay. It is both. Yeah. So I think that makes sense. The first order for business for CEOs and their teams was to adapt, stabilize, and survive. But the question is, what is next? Yeah, what is next? So next is how to thrive in this kind of an environment. But why is it an opportunity? So as I mentioned, is status quo easy to change or is it resilient? So in general, status quo has a huge inertia. If you wanted to change the culture, it would take you years at least and concerted effort. But with COVID, what has happened is that the status quo has already been dismantled. And I believe that this is, if not once in a lifetime, at least once in a decade opportunity to rebuild the culture for the new normal, rebuild leadership, rebuild strategies, and rebuild processes for the new normal. Yeah. So how many of you have, you would have voted that remote work is more productive before COVID, you know? So lots of paradigms need to change. And I think it's a once in a decade opportunity to change the culture in your organization. So now, even if you are a successful organization, COVID impacted different industries differently. You know, some were hurt, some were neutral, and some benefited. Anything related to remote work or IT or work security, they are doing good. And anything related to travel and tourism and hospitality, they are not doing good. But in either case, you are leaving money on the table. You know, companies that have cultures, they can reap a lot more benefits in terms of people engagement, best places to work kind of an environment, as well as bottom line and top line growth. So we already know about companies who left money on the table. The classic examples are Nokia or Kodak. But even more recently, think about Intel. So they make microprocessors for PCs, laptops, tablets, etc. Do they make any microprocessors for smartphones, mobile phones? The answer is no. How about Microsoft? They have operating system that operates, you know, most PCs, laptops. How about smartphones? None. Google, say for example, one of the most successful companies, they could have been the next Facebook, next Netflix. So the point is that because it's a VUCA world, and if you have your culture right, and if you are open to opportunities, if you have the right talent strategy, then you can reap the benefits. Otherwise, you are leaving money on the table. So you pay 100% salary for utilizing only a fraction of the talent. Okay, so here is also chat question, and you have to answer it. What strategies or factors will help companies not just to survive, but to thrive in a post-COVID world? So if you can type your answers, what would you need to thrive in a post-COVID world? Okay, remote customer interaction. Anything else? If you were in leadership positions, which many of you are, how would you ensure that your organization thrives? Collaboration. Obviously, collaboration is needed. Anything else? Talent acquisition. Okay. Still a challenge, especially for specific key technical kind of positions, both in IT and non-IT. True. Engagement. True. Okay. So we already discussed some of the challenges and some of the priorities from the CEO survey. I believe what is required in general is number one, speed. Number two, flexibility. Number three, experimentation. Yeah, redefine their productivity and performance measures. So again, speed, flexibility, experimentation, and in general, learning faster than the pace of change or disruptions. So we have to learn. And collaboration, you already mentioned that. Uh, and a culture of psychological safety. In fact, I did a webinar on it. Google wanted to find out what makes teams successful. And what they found was who was on the team did not matter at all, but how they interacted that mattered. And they talked about 5 factors, but the one that was the linchpin of team productivity and performance was a climate of psychological safety. So that's the kind of environment we are, and that's what we need, a quick, fast learning, collaboration, and using collective intelligence. So we always talk about that when someone talks about strategy, that did you include culture or talent strategy? And that is critical. And yet many CEOs and executives underestimate the need for it. Why? Well, strategy is cool and sexy, and changing culture, it's very easy, correct? Obviously not. It's hard and it's messy. And you can ignore the culture, but it'll be at your own peril. You know, culture has inertia. And to quote Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that might not be all. In fact, culture might eat employee motivation for lunch. And culture might also eat change and innovation for dinner. So next question is, who or what creates the culture? Uh, how is culture created? Any thoughts on that before I move on to the next slide? Who or what creates culture? Okay, so maybe some answers are coming. You guys are thinking. Top leadership. Well, I couldn't agree more. If I had a first prize, I would give it to you, Diljit. Top leadership. Yes. Okay. But it's not just top leadership. Yeah. It's leadership, team leader. Yeah. Perfect. People and role modeling from the top. That's right. So here is a Korn Ferry Hay Group survey on what factors impact the bottom line. Now, this is not employee engagement. This is not anything else. This is your profits, bottom line. So that included 5 factors. Strong franchises. So if you think of an Apple or a Coca-Cola, that's a strong franchise. Munificent, beneficial environments. So if you think Silicon Valley, setup, that might be a munificent environment for innovative companies. Intellectual property rights, Qualcomm, maybe drug companies. Regulatory barriers, so artificial barriers to entry in certain countries or certain localities. And then massive resources. So think about a Procter and Gamble or a Google, even if you had their products or services or programming, you could never match their scale. So question is, what about the other 35% of the bottom line? So what Korn Ferry found was, which you guys intuitively already answered the questions, it's leadership behaviors and the culture it creates that accounts for 35% of the bottom line. And think about this, which one is under your control? The 65% on the left or 35% on the right? And the answer is obvious, isn't it? This factor, leadership behaviors, that might be the only factor that is totally under our control, the organization's control. So what leadership qualities are needed in the post-COVID world? Anyone cares to share what specific leadership qualities are needed? So you say that top leadership needs to role model. Agreed. What do they need to role model? What kind of behaviors they need to role model? Any thoughts on that? Okay, one is collaboration. Anything else? Okay, and decision-making ability. Any other thoughts? Being positive and forward-thinking, obviously, always a good idea. Besides that, okay, soft skills. Okay, emotional quotient, adaptability, compassion, being an enabler. Fantastic answers. Yeah, very nice. Okay. And you can keep sharing. I'll move on. So we have moved from 20th century paradigm into 21st century. So command and control is empowering and nurturing. Leader as a boss. Yeah, learning is very important. Leader as a boss to leader just as a facilitator. And team does what they are told to. Team members are a key contributors of knowledge and insights. Yeah. So new kind of leadership is needed if we want to leverage leadership and thrive. And so I'm going to talk about it on the next slide. In business environments where we have complexity, uncertainty, and interdependency, what works best is not command and control, but a climate of psychological safety. So before COVID crisis, you could probably get away with old style of leadership, but COVID is kind of like the tide. It has gone down. Now, if you don't, these disruptions without the culture, you will be left behind. So here's the next slide I was talking about. I did a webinar on that, leaders' role in creating psychologically safe workplaces. So extensive 2-year study from Google showed that this factor, psychological safety, was the linchpin of team effectiveness. It's not who's on the team, how smart people are, how they collaborate, whether they are working on remote teams or virtual teams. All these things didn't matter, and what mattered was a climate of psychological safety. Now, CEOs said that they were facing team cohesion problem. Why? Because the same research also shows that psychological safety lacks on most teams. So if you had, before the tide went down, if you had a culture of psychological safety, these things would have been mitigated. But psychological safety is absent in many organizations. And we'll share the link of the webinar if you wanted to take a look at it, because it's a fantastic lens on what kind of leadership is needed. In fact, as I mentioned, Google study, the research said that it didn't matter where the teams were remote or co-located. They were in the same place. It wouldn't impact performance. So that was very interesting. And obviously, after COVID, where everyone is working remotely, it might have changed, but still it's quite interesting. Okay, so new normal needs a new kind of leadership. So it's learn, unlearn, and relearn. And obviously, we all have heard this quote from Alvin Toffler, and Amit just mentioned learning as a key driver. So Alvin Toffler's quote says that the illiterate of the 20th century was the person who could not read or write. The illiterate of the 21st century is the person who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So here is a little poll. Maybe I promised a poll. Which one of these is most difficult? And maybe I'll launch this poll. Can you see the poll? So these are 3 options. You have to say which one is most difficult. Learn, unlearn, or relearn. Learn, unlearn, or relearn. Okay. Another minute and then we will close the poll. Okay. So here I'm going to end poll and share results. So we have learn at 10%, unlearn at 60%, and relearn at 30% here. So that's correct. I think you guys intuitively understood that unlearning is the most difficult. Why? Because we have learned and that has made us successful, and now we have to unlearn. So what is the benefit of the COVID crisis? A lot of unlearning has already happened. Culture has already started dismantling. So this gives you an opportunity. So while we are in poll, you can type your answer, maybe just yes or no. Do leaders need help, or can they figure things out for themselves in this new normal? So what are your thoughts? Question is, do leaders need help? Yes, no? Do leaders need help to lead in the new normal? Okay, everyone needs help. Definitely need help. True. Yes.
Yes.
Seems like we are unanimous that we need help. So how do we normally support and develop our leaders? So typically it's sending them to B school or an internal leadership development program. Some large organizations even have a university, leadership university their own. And other is, of course, e-learning. No, these days that's the latest buzz. So e-learning is a fantastic tool, but the question is, can e-learning and these kinds of leadership interventions, do they help you change the behavior? So one of the leaders we coached, he said that expecting a leader to change her behavior from e-learning is like expecting someone to learn swimming by watching a video. So once you go into leadership with the people, you forget all the video and then you go back to normal. So question is, how are these things doing? Is leadership development working? So here is an estimate from 2014. Worldwide, 62 billion were spent on leadership development. So probably now it's more than 100 billion. So you would think that leadership is fantastic, but it's not. Boston Consulting Group says that most of the leadership development investment goes to waste. And although top leaders say, CEOs say their top priority is leadership development, only 10% of them think that their leadership development has any business impact. Only 10%, yeah. And here is an article from Forbes. If you think leadership development is a waste of time, you may be right. And we have intuitively kind of known that and felt that, and that's why we are hesitant. So stop wasting money on traditional leadership development. So we come to the next point, how to get measurable ROI from your leadership development. And here are some tips. So first of all, stop sending people to few episodic leadership development program. Internal or external. Now he's going for a strategy. Now she's going for influential leadership. Those things really don't work. Have a comprehensive long-term leadership development strategy. So it's not an event. It's a process. It takes years and it takes strategic direction. So that's the next point. Align leadership development to organizational context, strategy, and strengths. So many times I use this example of two companies which all of us know. So first one is Starbucks and other one is Walmart. Both are very successful companies. Do you think they have a different strategy? So one focuses on low cost, other one focuses on knock your socks off service and an environment. So can both of those people send their leaders to a B school? And do you think you can leverage their strengths? Obviously not. The next part is CEOs and C-suite teams need to take responsibility for leadership and culture. So if I had $1 every time we met a senior leader or a C-suite executive and he or she said that I'm okay, but fix these guys under me, they need leadership development, I would be quite rich, So it starts with you. If you are a leader, you're always leading by example. Whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, or whether you want it or not, you're always leading by example. So HR and talent management can help, but the buck stops with you and you have to be involved. Next is customize leadership development to individual leader. So one size doesn't fit all in leadership development. It just doesn't work. Everyone has different strengths and they have to leverage those, and everyone has different bottlenecks. So it has to be customized for individual leader. Next is you have to utilize the collective intelligence of the diverse teams. Yeah, that's how problems get solved. That's how work gets done. Nobody is smarter than all of us. So how do you utilize the collective intelligence? Involve team members in the leader's development. Let them see what the leader does or doesn't do. And so then you can utilize the collective intelligence. Yeah. Connect leadership to application at work. So, one of the famous B school is known for case study methodology. So case study looks fantastic in a simulated environment, but when you come back, none of that applies, and it happens again and again and again. Case studies are helpful, but without real application at work, In my organization, how did it help me what Coca-Cola did to expand the strategy to expand their business in Latin America? It's a good thing to know, but a strategy has to be that disconnect is there. And this kind of comes to talent management people also. Measure what matters, not vanity metrics. What do we measure? How many people are trained and how many people have gone through leadership program and how many people hold certifications. And these days there are all kinds of awards, best place to work and nice place to work and, best HR department and best this department. And guess what? What do those companies do when they give you, a certain evaluation? It's a business proposition for them. Some even charge money for nomination. So don't forget about those. What matters in leadership? It is changed behavior at work, and that too not judged by the leader, but anonymously rated by the leader's own team members. And that's when you can say that leadership development has happened. And you have to focus on changing both mindsets and skill sets. Without that, it'll go back to the old way of doing things. And the next and last one is start and include the entire executive team. Why? Because it has a multiplier effect. It has a cascading effect and it is a cross-functional effect also. And guess what? If the top leadership team is aligned and they are modeling the right behaviors, what would happen to the rest of the team? Obviously, they'll play along. So as I said, these two guides, if you have already registered, would be sent to you how to make your leadership development initiatives impactful and how to evaluate and select the best leadership development coach, and a chance to win 2 of our starter packages for what we call triple advantage coaching. So you can enter your email and we would enter you, and then 2 of you will win those starter packages. So if you haven't done so already, you are welcome to put in your name, organization, and your email. So the next question is, are you ready to take advantage of the opportunity of the decade? Next question is, are you playing offense or defense? And finally, are you in survival mode or are you planning to thrive? That's the power of hard times. Money is transferred, money is made. Companies die and companies thrive. So then we deliver results for your leaders. So our leadership coaching is 95% impact. Only 5% of the leaders do not improve or change. And we guarantee it, we measure it, and it is time and resource efficient. So you don't have to send the leader to a 5-day program or a 2-week program to a B school. They don't have to go away from work. We come to you virtually or in person, and it only takes about 1.5 to 2 hours per month. And during the rest of the time, the leaders are implementing those behaviors with their team at their work. Next is, it is individualized development, for each leader, and it is aligned to strategy. It's not one size fits all. Everybody is working on their bottleneck and leveraging their strengths. And as I said, the benefit cascades down to the entire team. The entire team is involved every month. And although you're only coaching the leader, the benefit is utilized by the entire team. And as I said, our 1-year engagement often costs less than sending the leader to a 5-day program at a reputed B school. Our intervention is 12 to 15 months, and it costs less than sending a leader to a 5-day B school. So talk about cost of the program, cost of absence from work, cost of reduced productivity, and then no application at work. And then we have an online platform which is scientifically designed for support and accountability. So what happens is, insight may happen in a training or a coaching session, but where does behavior change happen? Well, it happens in real life at work. And leaders get busy, things happen, they tend to forget. And what happens with our online platform is that you have everything in one place: action plans, reminders, measurements, tracking, reflection, journal. And that's not all. Micro learning, reflection, and habit formation. So we have more than 2,500 different tools, and you would only get what you need, and then you will reflect and bring it into your action plan. In addition, you get continuous access to our coaches via the online platform, two-way communication. So this allows you to convert good insights into daily actions, into habits, and into results. And it's the largest leadership coaching network in the world, 3,000 coaches, 200 cities, one process. Global Guru named this process as the #1 process, coaching process in the world. 150 of the Fortune 500 companies have used this process. And the best of all, we put our money where our mouth is. So if your leaders don't improve, you don't pay. And who decides whether the leader has improved or not? Not us, not the leader, but 3 anonymous ratings by the leader's own team. And that's when we say that, yes, we've succeeded, give us our money now. And we have a team of 30 coaches worldwide. All of them have both industry and coaching experience. That gives you a better perspective, and we can come to you virtually or in person. So to kind of conclude, a lot is riding on top leaders. Would you agree with that? A lot is riding on leaders, especially after post-COVID. Is the answer yes or no? Do leaders have huge responsibility? Yes or no? And Birjit says absolutely. So think about your executive leadership team. So who's the executive team or C-suite team? The CEO or CXO or MD, whatever you want to call him or her, and the people who directly report to them. So think about your company, how many people are there? The CEO and the people who report to the CEO. And if you'd like to share, you can share. And then compare that with the number of employees in your organization. Yeah. So you think about a company, CEO and the people who directly report to them, they are responsible for the well-being and taking the company to the strategic direction. So it's not unusual to see 1,000 people company having a C-suite or an extended leadership team of 30 people. So if you don't support those, then how can you expect that everything is going to be hunky-dory or well? So are you using a sink or swim approach, or are you setting up your leaders for success? Yeah. So we have this process that you can schedule a conversation with us, and we offer the first session, sensitization, complimentary, then assessment, awareness, acceptance, and action. And you can choose as many sessions as you want, or you can commit and go with the entire package. So you can schedule an appointment at our website. We'll also share the link. And there's no sales pitch, there's no cost, no obligation, just conversation, and to see if we can help you. So we've come to the end of our presentation. And if you have a few questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Any questions, any thoughts, any reflection from our little short presentation today? So while you're thinking about these questions, I will use my, old trainer coach joke that when people don't answer, when you ask a question at the end, it either means that they understood everything or it means that they understood nothing. And with you smart guys, I am assuming that it's the former. You understood everything. Yeah. Okay, Alexander says this methodology really works. Great. So presentation, any questions or any thoughts? Thank you, Lexi. I'm glad you enjoyed the presentation. Any questions by any chance? So you can go to our website, newageleadership.com, or we've already put in the link. You can schedule a short 15-minute appointment or a full appointment. Okay, Alexander says that the best is no cure, no pay. That is what leaders appreciate. Yes. So, how do you know that someone has conviction about something? No. So if I say I can do 100 push-ups, so should you believe me? Well, if I'm ready to put my money where my mouth is, then you should believe me. If I'm ready to bet $100 that yes, I can do 100 push-ups, then yes, you can believe me. But then if I say, no, I can do certain number of push-ups, but this or but that, then you can sense that I don't have conviction of my own in what I am preaching. Yes, Diljit. So how do you know what to improve? And if you look at study by Zenger and Folkman, what it says is how do you gauge a leader? Ask the people around him or her. So fantastic study that they did, which proved the connect between leadership and development. What happens is, if you just measure the 360, it'll give you a good indication of whether the leader is a high performer or not. Even if you had a blind study, take 100 leaders in your organization in the same position and do a 360 of them, then divide them into top scores based on 360 and bottom scores on based on 360. And I can guarantee you that their performance would be a difference of a factor of 2, 4, or 6. Okay, why people drop out in case of comprehensive program over a period of time when they are learning? Yeah, they do. Things come up. People get busy. And I always ask people is that, have you tried to change the habit of a successful person ever? So Marshall Goldsmith says that, have you tried to change your spouse's behavior successfully or unsuccessfully? So you cannot change the behavior of a grown adult, especially a leader who doesn't want to change, but you can align their interests. You can show them that not changing their behavior is costing them, and changing their behavior, it's not hard. Well, it's partially hard, but it has benefits. Okay, any other thoughts? Okay, so we are at 8:59. I'll give one more minute to either share your thoughts or share a question or two. If not, we'll close down. And if anyone wants to stay, it's absolutely fine. So we are at the end of the session. If someone has other engagements, you're welcome to leave. Okay, role modeling goes missing. Yeah. So I kind of joke always that if leaders knew what they had to do, if they role modeled the right behavior, then I definitely would be out of business. I would have no business. And it's a world where you need to make the leader aware. You need to help them take consistent action. You need to get them to the level of acceptance. And that's why we are in business, where we help them. It's a triple advantage. We help the leader to get better, a better leader and a better human being. We help their team to perform better and have better relationship. And we help the organization because the teams improve. Yeah. Good. So we will end our session here, and you're welcome to stay connected with me on LinkedIn or go to our website. My email is info@newageleadership.com, and we will see you hopefully soon. Our paths will cross. And thank you so much for joining today. I sincerely appreciate your time. Bye-bye.